The 5.7 Archon quest didn't just drop lore, it thrusted us right into it. Hey guys, what's up? Haru. What started as an abyss war through NATLAN turned into one of the most timeline-bending quests in the game history. And in today's video, we'll be talking about the truth behind the Traveler Twins, the return of Dainsleif, a look into the Cataclysm, and the rise of the Loom of Fate to create the new Khaenri'ah. It's all here. We've got temporal tricks, key swapping across eras, and a memory-fueled reality shift. And now it's a turning point for Teyvat and its story. So let's break down exactly what happened, and maybe crack a few theories wide open while we're at it. So, let's get started. Now here's the big update. The Abyss sibling is now officially confirmed to be the savior and once served as the prince or princess of Khaenri'ah. Both siblings crash-landed into Teyvat using the same kind of hibernation keys, but both of them ends up rediscovering each other's keys from a certain girl. For us, however, this discovery leads us to realize that the Abyss sibling has been active in NATLAN recently. But for the Abyss sibling, it's a different story. Now, after waking up with amnesia in pre-Cataclysm Khaenri'ah, the Abyss sibling took on a leadership role, helping to fight against the Abyss and pretty much becoming their kingdom's last defender as the prince/princess of Khaenri'ah. But right as the Cataclysm happened, DIREIDYTH arrives and they learned that the Traveler was still alive. Their motivation pivoted completely from saving Khaenri'ah to finding their sibling, which actually ended up with this happening and taking the Abyss back to square one, but this time Khaenri'ah was already destroyed, which made them realize that they had to save Khaenri'ah first so they could be with the Traveler second. This is exactly why the Abyss sibling regrets choosing to abandon Khaenri'ah at the last second. At this time, the Abyss sibling went with Dainsleif to try and save Khaenri'ah again, and along their journey, they meet Clothar and Caribert in Sumeru. It's worth noting that the Abyss twin didn't become the leader of the Abyss Order right then and there. It still took them some time while being with Dane before siding with the Abyss Order. And that's pretty much the timeline of events at this point for the sibling. But anyway, that key, the one you either hand over or keep during the quest, it's not just a spaceship key. It's a turning point for events. Even though regardless of what the player chooses, the canon path shows the other sibling is meant to receive it. But that moment resets their trajectory if the sibling wasn't there, since the sibling wouldn't get the key, so they'd be able to save Khaenri'ah as they planned, and DIREIDYTH wouldn't be there in the first place if we didn't give her the key. If we did, which we inevitably do, it's no longer about restoring Khaenri'ah. It would be about reuniting with the Traveler. But the world's laws make it so you can't take the key with you, even if you actually do, because there's actually a third key. The Abyss sibling gives another key to DIREIDYTH either way, supporting the idea that time in Teyvat isn't really branching, it's more self-correcting, just like the Irminsul. But this time, there's actually more at play. This is why there's 3 keys, one for the Traveler, one for the Abyss sibling, and one randomly with DIREIDYTH through a weird recurrence that connects the past and present. Here's where the story turns personal. The key doesn't just serve as a plot device, it's more symbolic. The Traveler's choice in the quest mirrors a deeper theme: follow fate or fight it. If the Traveler gives the key, they follow the path already in motion, the one that Istaroth and the Shades of Time have woven, and the one that the sibling wishes to keep. If the Traveler chooses to keep it, then they're trying to rewrite fate like we usually do in our Archon quests. But the Abyss sibling pushes back this time, not just out of pragmatism, but because they want that reunion to happen. In their dialogue, they literally say that I know you always want to change fate, we both do. But this time, I won't let you succeed. Followed by throwing another key to DIREIDYTH and saying that I cannot miss the chance to reunite with you 500 years in the past, no matter what. That moment tells us that to the Abyss sibling, fate isn't just destiny, it's more of a schedule. A framework that they need to adjust with just long enough to fulfill their own plan to change it. Hence why the title of this chapter is a reversed version of the actual quest name. The full quest act is A Space and Time for You, but this specific chapter is titled A Space and Time Without You. That reversal matters since it signifies a temporary split, a moment where the Traveler stands apart from the Abyss sibling. When the Traveler questions what Khaenri'ah has to do with them, the sibling drops the most honest line in the entire quest. All along, it's ever been about us. This isn't just a world-ending plot or a kingdom-restoring mission, this is still a story about 2 people, separated by time, loss, and memory, trying to rewrite the stars just to find their way back to each other. Everything else is just a story that they need to go through to meet each other. The real heart of the Loom, the Order, and the Abyss and Teyvat is still their bond. And here's why this time, fate must be followed, at least for now. If you've noticed in previous Archon quests, the Traveler challenged fate a lot because the system that they confronted were flawed, corrupt, or incomplete, like Inazuma's eternity being decayed, Sumeru's samsara cycle being riddled with the abyss, and Fontaine's courtroom disguised as the truth with pre-written prophecy. But here, just for now, fate is a cosmic rulebook or law that they need to follow, one written by Istaroth, the Sustainer, and the Shades, orchestrated by the heavenly principles. If they were to rewrite it or keep the keys, everything collapses. The reunion, DIREIDYTH'S loop, the stable execution of the LOOM, and the creation of the Atlas for New Khaenri'ah. Breaking this order too early risks erasing the one thing that the Abyss sibling has fought to preserve, a shared moment outside time where they can finally truly talk. A full memory connection without interruption, amnesia, or divine interference. Every other meeting with the Traveler always ends in silence, memory loss, or sudden parting. But this time, the Abyss sibling is playing by the rules, because breaking them never gave them what they wanted, which is an unbroken moment with the Traveler, a point in time where fate holds still, memory doesn't fade, and no divine forces interrupts. If you played all of Dainsleep's quests, you'll notice that all they ever wanted to do was talk, and the perfect bridge to connect them was a little village girl who became a hilichurl. DIREIDYTH might be the most quietly critical character introduced yet. She's from 500 years ago and has a prophecy in hand, find the savior. When she holds hands with the Traveler, she can see hidden monsters, which is actually her reality in the past. But what's more important is that she's the one who delivers the key to the future. For anyone who didn't notice, she's the hilichurl you see at the very start of the quest. That means that she was already in the present and was just reliving her past memory with our current world. And by seeing the past, she becomes the one who reaches the Abyss sibling and tells them that the Traveler is alive. Having DIREIDYTH be in both places and see both siblings was planned by the Shades to dissuade the Abyss sibling from saving Khaenri'ah, which actually worked. This changes everything for the sibling. They leave behind their plans to rebuild Khaenri'ah in favor of saving the Traveler and causing Khaenri'ah to fall. DIREIDYTH, who for some reason finds our spaceship, likely secretly aided by the heavenly principles, literally alters the course of the timeline by way of relation because of that key and finding the Abyss sibling. And now with Khaenri'ah's reconstruction, we meet her past, which means that she can change everything that the two siblings would have done. What's more astonishing is that she would have actually done it. Even our Traveler was caught off guard by her, struck with the choice to find our sibling or change the fate to save DIREIDYTH, ergo a representation of saving Khaenri'ah, something that our sibling chose not to. Now let's talk about the Shining Shades. Istaroth, the shining shade of time, was only ever mentioned once, but she's actually the one who orchestrated this wild goose chase along with the Sustainer. I mean, how else would you explain DIREIDYTH suddenly finding the Traveler in such a dire point in the Cataclysm? Temporal anomalies and random appearances like these are Istaroth's domain, and transporting you to certain moments in time is already seen in many quests before. For Archon quests, you have Inazuma and the Sakura Tree, and for World quests, we have my favorite Enkanomiya books. That one moment where the sibling chooses to leave Teyvat with us was actually planned by Istaroth to distract the sibling from saving Khaenri'ah, which ends with the other likely shade punishing us for that blunder. The Sustainer, who shows up just once, but her influence is massive. She's theorized as the Shade of Space and the one who originally stopped the twins from leaving Teyvat. These two shades are likely collaborating to stabilize a pocket of time and space where the Traveler can witness the full truth and see how each sibling would react to that key moment. And now in 5.7, they're just watching us reflect on that exact mistake. This sneaky dabbling is part of the Heavenly Principles' grand system, a means to keep the Descenders within Teyvat moving along the path that they designed. Since heading straight for the siblings would be luring us into their trap, which is why the Abyss Twin gave the third key to DIREIDYTH, to keep the timeline stable and have no alteration between the Travelers meeting each other 500 years ago. But this also means letting DIREIDYTH stay in that cave until she transforms into a hilichurl, which is bound to happen either way since she doesn't seem to be pure-blooded Khaenri'ah. But the main point here is that she has the key, and she kept it in that cave for us to meet both DIREIDYTH and the sibling in the past. So we'll likely go back to that same location when the Atlas completes recreating Khaenri'ah in the future. If you've read Vera's Melancholy, it's almost the exact same telling of events. But I won't delve too deep into that theory. Now if you're wondering what the Shade of Death is doing, she's already done doing her part in cursing DIREIDYTH, but maybe not as much as a normal Khaenri'ah would because of their plan to keep the key for the Travelers. This is why I think that hilichurl stayed in that cave for 500 years and even came back to hold your hand while you slept. Whether or not that's a cruel act upon DIREIDYTH is up to your own moral compass, but since she was able to hold off her curse just enough to keep the key and wait for the sibling as the savior, as well as recognizing what we would look like, then it's worth assuming that the Shade of Death's curse on her wasn't hard enough to take away her mental state completely. I'm pretty sure everybody knows this already, but the Traveler and the Abyss sibling are descenders outside of Teyvat's system, even though one of them entered as a summons from Khaenri'ah and became part of Teyvat through this amnesia and new initial life. That's why the Heavenly Principles can't directly interfere with them. Instead, the system sends agents and shades like Istaroth and the Sustainer to guide or suppress our movements, basically messing with our goals within their own rules, just enough to make us do their bidding, which is how that whole DIREIDYTH thing happened with our sibling 500 years ago. Now, as for the Khaenri'ah prophecy of the savior, that wasn't divine or good intentioned, it was a political stunt. King Ermin used that prophecy to weaponize the siblings' arrival, aligning the usurpation of the Abyss with his greedy goals. So what we're seeing now is less celestial prophecy and more legacy manipulation, all enforced through celestial rules that the Shades uphold. Now here's where the lore gets dense and where other worlds and outer space come in. Not Skirk levels, but creating other worlds. The Abyss Order has been using their NATLAN invasion as a diversion, but also as raw materials. Their real objective is to use the Loom of Fate to create new Khaenri'ah using memories of those Abyss Order members, albeit fragmented memories of their own fragmented minds, using those memories to create a leyline network and using that as a blueprint to fabricate the Khaenri'ah that they remember before the Cataclysm. Hadden and Dainsleif speak of this right after they were killed, air quotes, which is interesting because of how their immortality keeps them from actually dying. The Loom of Fate is a machine that builds reality from memory now, which means they're using the collective experiences of cursed Khaenri'ah citizens to create a replica of Khaenri'ah. Hayden, one of the iniquitous Baptists, spills the details of why they needed memories and was even able to take some of Dainsleif's in his fight, which is crucial since he has the clearest memories. So now, we know that the Abyss Order isn't blowing up Teyvat or burning the throne of Celestia. They're more about overlaying a new version of their kingdom to reality. The location is still unknown, but it's likely going to be somewhere the Heavenly Principles and the Seven have no control over. World-building theories say that the world now seems to look like this. So they plan to put Khaenri'ah somewhere here, or maybe even on another planet or moon, which is likely since Nodcry is coming next. And it actually aligns with the Fatui's goals to some degree, especially when it comes to taking over the fake sky. What's wilder is that it's already happening. The Traveler finds themselves in a partially overwritten space. The space we were in is a temporal pocket by accident, watched over by Istaroth and the Sustainer under the Heavenly Principles' directive, using the Loom of Fate as a medium while it's recreating new Khaenri'ah, which is terrifying when you realize that they've been watching every second of our movements since we descended here. It's almost as if something or someone has been following us, monitoring and reporting our movements the entire time. I also find it funny that Paimon wasn't in this scene since she didn't hold DIREIDYTH'S hand, but it also might be because the sibling only wanted to talk to us alone. Or was she? But anyway, this little pocket event dimension allows all key actors to fulfill their roles without breaking the timeline. A memory-generated Khaenri'ah created within NATLAN's special ley lines, and a moment for the Traveler to fulfill the fate that the Heavenly Principles intended, and see the blunder and result that the Abyss sibling made, which was to destroy Khaenri'ah and have the siblings search for each other indefinitely, almost like a cycle. But again, we were stopped by our sibling for that exact purpose, because they didn't want us to change fate. If you were wondering why NATLAN of all places, then I suggest looking into NATLAN's history, specifically the Night Kingdom's history. The Night Kingdom in NATLAN is ground zero or the perfect template to create the Atlas and fabricate new Khaenri'ah. The reason why is because its ley lines were scarred in the Second Descender War and reconstructed to house the Night Kingdom as its pseudo-ley line network, managed by the Lord of the Night, which is a Seelie and their Archon. This is interesting since NATLAN is the only region with its own power source that isn't just elemental energy, which is actually phlogiston, the original element of light. So in a sense, it's the closest to a completely human-run civilization, which matches perfectly with Khaenri'ah's intentions. Moving on, Citlali mentions that the Lord of the Night allowed the Memory Atlas to connect with NATLAN's Night Kingdom. This gives them a real-world anchor for the Atlas, but it's not simply replacing NATLAN with new Khaenri'ah. Instead, what's being built is a separate dimension, a memory-constructed space that exists in parallel to NATLAN or Teyvat. This dimension is being stabilized and run from NATLAN using its altered leyline network. It acts as a tether or proxy, allowing the Atlas to draw from Teyvat's natural laws of leyline construction while creating its own reality. But this wasn't done without permission. Citlali confirms that the Lord of the Night gave the Abyss sibling the right to create and manage this dimension, though the terms of that agreement were still unknown. But I hazard a guess that the Lord of the Night was curious to see if humanity can achieve such a godly feat, or that she was told to allow it by the Shades and the Heavenly Principles in secret. Basically, what's happening is another world being cultivated beside our own, and the Atlas is the bridge that lets memories cross into matter using the Night Kingdom and the memories of the Abyss Order as materials. Think of it as seeding a stream to download something from one computer to another. Now let's break down some plausible outcomes and findings from what we've seen and played through. Starting with the robed sage who visits DIREIDYTH'S village and delivers a prophecy, I think this might be either Daughter or Ruptatir. Daughter is known for her deep involvement in creation and manipulation of life, so she could be connected to the Loom's underlying tech and creation, as well as summoning of the siblings like she summons and creates her children. Ruptatir, the wise, while still largely mysterious, is often tied to the name Sage in Norse translation and their current reputation as the Wise Sage. Next, the Abyss sibling saying that if they wish to speak with the Heavenly Principles as an equal, they'll need the might of an entire world behind them could be quite literal. At this point, the Loom is now able to create kingdoms and by extension new worlds. It may act as a portable transmitter of the memory-based versions of all life and creation, as a sort of external hard drive of worlds if they're able to gather enough memories and move it to another world. Which is exactly why it catches the attention of this world's rulers, and why they were this close to us after finding out. This would mean the sibling is essentially walking around with the potential to overwrite or change parts of any world with this Atlas. And if it were ever activated at full scale, creating a new world that could fight the Abyss by using the Abyss against it, just like Skirk and the Sinners, it could force a reality shift that threatens the Heavenly Principles, which is exactly what the sibling wants. Moving on, Nicole's comment in Sumeru about what's real and what isn't may be signaling this exact shift. The idea that memory and preserved thought could take priority over physical world logic aligns really well with the Loom structure, essentially making thoughts and memories into physical things, just like how fishing for metaphors in the Night Kingdom creates physical items. If successful, this kind of system could create regions of Teyvat's governed not by natural law, but collective memory instead, and be able to create new worlds and, more importantly, copies of worlds, just like backup saves for hard drives whenever something goes wrong, reloading worlds, or copying them on other planets, which is a new way of saving themselves from the Abyss. But a new moral dilemma rises with that plan, in that the older copies wouldn't survive, while newer copies would carry on. Anyone who played Soma would know what I'm talking about. And then we also have the summer events, where players enter dreamlike memory domains, which might have been smaller scale experiments that the Hexen Circle do in relation to Loom-like world creations. We already saw temporary realities anchored in emotion and memory, so it's feasible that technology tested there is similar to the final version of the Loom. Just as an extra crossover theory, the way the Shades have us experience past events is similar to the Honkai lore about Su and the Seed of Sumeru. And much of Genshin's story right now is starting to look like how Amphoris' history went on too. Maybe Teyvat is really just one of the many bubble universes in the Sea of Quanta, or is one of the new pure worlds of the imaginary tree. And that's pretty much it for the full breakdown of the 5.7 Archon quest. And we still have Skirk's quest to talk about, so be sure to watch that when it comes out. Now, a lot has happened in this patch, and it finally gave us some answers about the twins, Conria, and the whole time travel setup, but it also gave us more obscure questions about the world and beyond. So what do you guys think? Comment below your thoughts about this current Dainsleif quest, and maybe tell me what you guys think about Skirk's quest as well. The Loom of Fate stuff is starting to make more sense, and the story feels like it's finally lining up for something big. If you've got your own takes on the siblings' plan or what the Atlas could do in the future, then be sure to drop them in the comments. Anyway, thanks for staying around to the end, and if you're into this kind of stuff, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as well as hit the bell for more breakdowns and theory ramblings. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay mad, theorists. Bye!